The title is Media and Politics in Kurdistan: How Politics and Media Are Locked in an Embrace.
What made you write that book?
It was a part of my academic career. It was a part of the PhD that I was writing. Also, in my PhD, I focus on the interplay between politics and media, and I was very much interested in the political communication and the way it works in Kurdistan region. At that time, I was also a bit involved in political communication, and I was doing it actually.
So
So it was
practice.
it was practice, it was experience, it was my interest. Somehow, I have always ended up. I mean, I've done different jobs until now, but wherever I go, I usually end up being back in media. So myself and media are, let's say, around 25 years together.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you think like political parties, let's say, or politicians, do they use media just because they think they must, not only in Kurdistan, let's say in the world, do they use media because they think they must have media, or do they really understand the importance of media to get their message or their politics
It's
across?
not what I think. It's not about my opinion. It's a fact. It's a proven fact. It's scientific fact that political parties do not operate without the support, the great support that they receive from media, because political parties are echoing the voice of people, supposedly. And then the way around, they need to echo back to the people. So that channel of communication is very important. And when it comes to democracies, a good democracy is where citizens are well informed. So political parties in the modern world try to do their best to have an effective way of communication with public, to have different channels of communication that they can convey their message to the public.
And media, in your opinion, could it be a force for good? Can it do good things? And I'm sure it can do good things and bad things, right? But is it the media itself, or is it the people who control the media that
It's
direct it?
both, and it can do both. The way that people perceive media and the way that people read between lines is very important. For example, and also, let me get back to what you asked. Media can do good, very good, can be very positive, and can harm
At the same
big time at the same time. But it depends how you use media, how you practice this media. In a modern world, media is a means, as we said earlier, to communicate with citizens. And also, it's a means that citizens are informed. So, as
Exactly.
I said earlier, it's the way that also how readers or how uh, perceivers of media are perceiving media.
So you mean the people's, a nation's level of education is important?
Exactly, it's important because, for example, even in Iraq, even in Kurdistan region, uh, different medias do not use different terminologies. The way that some political parties are portrayed in certain media are sometimes different as they are portrayed in other medias.
For example, with the term terrorists, for example, some countries portray a group as terrorists while they are freedom fighters.
Some portray them, and some use the word freedom fighters. Some use to journalistic term for that is insurgencies. To be, let's say, not biased, to be not under political pressure. But still, when you read different stories from different medias, you get enough literacy to understand how that group of people are portrayed. So the literacy, media literacy, also matters, because media is not always there, I would say, to shape your mind. But if
Exactly.
you are too easy to have a mind that is easily shaped, so media will just do it.
But in that case, I think people must have options in order to compare. Because I remember when I was a child growing up in Kurdistan in the 80s, my father and all of his friends, people in Kurdistan in general, they would rather listen to the BBC or the Voice of America or Monte Carlo radio in France to get a better picture of the war than the Iraqi media.
Of course, the sources were limited at that time. But nowadays, you have all the world in front of your eyes. You can choose whatever you want to listen or read or watch, and there are many voices, different voices that you can depend on for your information and for your, let's say, daily decisions. You need to decide for your daily life. You need to decide for your life. So for that, you need information. That's very basic definition of media. And when it comes to the way that is communicated between people, you need information, and those information are provided through media. Nowadays, the channels of communication, channels of media are huge. You have varieties of channels that you can depend on or not depend on as source of information for your life decisions.
But does that not make it more challenging if you have too many sources of information? I think it would make it. Sometimes people say, "Oh, I miss the past days when we had one newspaper, one TV. At least we would know what to watch." Now, with too many
In
sources,
my opinion, on the contrary, it broadens your perspective, and it helps you decide wisely. It helps you decide more accurately because you have different voices talking about the same thing.
Hmm.
You have different sources that, from their own experience, let's say, perspective, they are presenting that fact or that matter. Then you have all the possibilities to decide what to shape in your mind.
To evaluate basically and assess. And it goes back to the level of people's education, because if you have too many sources, you would be even more confused. But if people are educated, they would probably be able to find the truth, the fine line, right, between all these sources of.
As I said earlier, yeah, it depends on the way that you
Yeah.
perceive it. I usually do not, when I double check news, I go back to different channels. If specifically when the news is about Middle East and it is published in one of the Middle Eastern, let's say, media outlet, because whether you want or not, it's a reality that all the medias here, all of them, with no exception, they have somehow, uh, let's say, connection with politics and political parties. And that's when you have an agenda. And all these media have different agendas. Imagine different agendas clashing.
Exactly.
What happens as an outcome to the society? Of course, that's somehow dangerous to even think about. And it is happening, unfortunately, on a daily basis.
So we shouldn't believe it if when some media in the Kurdistan region, in Iraq, some everywhere basically claim that they are independent. We hear that often. This is independent media. Based on your theory, we should not believe that. There is no media without connection to some politics or
Trust
government.
me. As an academic in this field, there is no objective media. Nowhere in the world, I would say. But when they claim that they are independent, especially in this region, in this part of the world, not only Kurdistan region, just this part of the world, you need to start doubting from that moment.
Exactly. And then the media, because they are so closely connected to politics and governments, as we said earlier, it could be a force for good or it could cause
Yeah,
conflict.
that's
Media has.
that's the transition that I want to have in this podcast. It's not only about perceiving me as a receiver of media, as an audience, myself as someone who listens, hears, watches, or reads in between lines of media. But us as a society, how does the media impact in general? Because it's not only about you and me, it's about the
Exactly.
next generation. It's about how they are educated. During your time and my time, I'm also not that young, we had limited sources of media. We had limited time for watching cartoons.
That's
Nowadays,
true. Yeah.
kids are watching it whenever they want on YouTube or different channels.
That's true.
We had sometimes per week one movie that we were waiting for it during the Friday
Yeah,
nights,
television.
right? Now it's Netflix that you can watch whenever you want.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the sources are more available, but the impact is somehow uh, something that you have to to doubt, and you have to be. Sometimes I'm scared of it because the way that we understood bringing up a kid is is now totally different.
So you think media now has as much influence on children as the
Media is
parents?
playing a huge role, and sometimes that role is not controlled even by the education system, because you have, for example, influencers that are irresponsible. You have media outlets that are not trained professionally.
Exactly.
You have many media that even now in Kurdistan, in Erbil, that we are sitting, we have many media outlets with their mics, with their broadcasting agendas, that their main method of working is tabloid media.
Yes.
It's just to come up with harsh messages to attract attention without any responsibility, without any age restriction messages, without any accountability. So
Exactly.
whatever they want, they are just saying it. Whatever they want, they are just showing it. So training does not play any role here. Ethics have no role at all. Journalists only pay attention to what attracts the attention of audience immediately.
But can we call them journalists? Like sometimes it happens, as a journalist is locked up, let's say, the police would arrest someone somewhere, and some argue that this person is not a journalist. He calls himself a journalist. So do you think anyone could be a journalist, especially now with citizen journalism? Or there are rules and regulations sometimes?
We have media channels here that they call themselves very popular. We are friends with the decision makers of some of them, and I hope they get angry now that I'm saying this. On a weekly basis, they come up with a report that we have this much views, this much likes.
We are number one.
We are number one, we are number two, this guy is number three. That's not media. That's not professional media. The media that cares more about likes and views rather than facts
Yeah.
and objective facts and responsibility should not call themselves media.
Exactly, because last night I was actually watching a short video on, I think, Instagram or Facebook. There was about 100 microphones in front of a man who was trying to say something, and he was saying, "Please lower your mics because no one can see my face." There were so many microphones in front of this guy. In that case, you wouldn't really know who to watch, who to believe, and you couldn't even see the man's face.
So that's in when it comes to media as profession, we academics tend to believe that diversity and diverse sources of media are
Is a good
very
thing.
it's something good. It's good. We have options. You decide for what to watch, what not to watch, and this diversity allows different voices. It's not that one dictated voice is available, but sometimes that diversity itself is a problem.
It's a mayhem.
And sometimes the media that you don't know their parents are making a lot of problems
Yes.
because they are irresponsible. Anyone with a mic, anyone with access to internet can be a journalist and a media outlet nowadays, and they're practicing that. There should be laws I'm not with limitations of freedom of speech. On the contrary, I love
Yeah.
freedom of speech, but that's what we do here is
Yeah.
not freedom of speech.
Responsibility is really important.
Responsibility is missing.
Yeah.
Ethics are missing. Practice, journalistic practice, professional practice is missing.
Yeah.
So my note or my let's say word to those media that they care to have a weekly report calling themselves number one, number two, number three is that they need to revisit
It doesn't
their
matter.
ethics,
Mm.
they need to revisit their professional
Mm.
background.
It's
And they
important.
really, really need
Yeah.
training.
Exactly.
Otherwise, our people are not in good hands.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because, especially in the Middle East where we live, this is an area that's prone to conflicts. The Middle East has gone from one conflict to another for decades. So, media could really play a negative role. If they are not careful, they could, you said earlier, it could be a force for good to make peace. It could also lead to disaster.
One of the ways that media leads to disaster is that lack of professionalism. What happened in Rwanda in 94, radio RTLM, they were, this is an example that everyone who is in the field of journalism or they tend, like me, they pretend to be academic of this field. They always mention this example. It was a very sad example. 800,000 people died in Rwanda in the course of 100 days when an irresponsible radio and television RTLM was broadcasting about broadcasting hate speech
Yes.
against the Tutsis, and they were pushing Hutus and even broadcasting about the location of Tutsis
Yeah.
and with a lot of hate speech against them, pushing Hutus to go and get them and slaughter them.
Yes.
But what happened was a disaster that the world did not witness before. And
Yeah.
all of that happened because of the hate speech that was broadcasted in the media.
They were calling the Hutus all kinds of names that would justify their killing.
If they were professional enough, if they had enough training, journalistic training, that disaster would not happen. I assure you, it would not harm to that level. And until nowadays, there are many examples during the Nazi war, the Nazi propaganda, the Goebbels propaganda, which is something that history always reminds us, was also the same. They were calling on Jews as dehumanizing Jews
Yeah.
in general, and they were calling to death or calling on different disasters, massacres. So there are many examples in the course of history that we can relate to. But what I want to mention is that lack of professionalism is a huge problem when you do not have ethical or code of conducts in any practice, specifically in profession like media. It's a very dangerous thing. And nowadays, what we need is a solid legal framework that puts media in its place.
I have actually been to Rwanda and I went to the museum of the genocide museum that they have. You're absolutely right. But I think they must have some reconciliation. Now, media might be playing a role in reversing what happened.
There is a Dutch organization after that started to Benevolencia, something like that. They started a radio, same radio,
It was radio and now
and
radio.
now radio. And what that radio did, the programs are about education, programs are about reconciliation, programs are about stories of Hutus and Tutsis living together.
Wow.
And it's not about who is right, who is wrong. It's about what we got out of this.
Exactly.
So that's programs helps the society get together again and build that society again. That organization, I think it's active in many African countries and in other uh, countries in the world, that
Post-conflict.
they have this phases of
Mm.
post-conflict era. Well, I hope that we never get there, but it's dangerous. What media is doing nowadays, specifically with different agendas, different political backgrounds, is something that is not good.
Mm. Yeah, but I mean, you are right. It's important for a media organization or anyone who calls him or herself a journalist to have ethics, responsibility, and training. But whose responsibility is it to train these people? You can't control them. Anyone could open a page, a website, a logo with a mic with a logo. I must say, who can organize this? It's
You
very
have institutions that they are expert in that. Parliament can legalize it, put it
it's a good idea.
in the legal framework. Legislations really help in that term. Again, it's not my intention to refer to legislations that they limit the freedom of speech or the freedom of opinion. But again, you have government institutions that they take care of putting a legal framework for people to work. For example, Minister of Interior, Minister of together with Ministry of Culture and Youth, they should come up with some forms of legal framework for everyone who is going to a print house and printing a logo and bringing it in front of people to speak.
I
There,
think they have that, don't they? In Europe?
I haven't seen anything because otherwise you wouldn't see that huge amount of a
But
vast.
well, yeah, but I think maybe in the beginning they give them the license, the
I don't
logo,
think
the
so.
everything, and then they go off
Otherwise, the
track.
print house would ask them to bring their license in. I know many digital medias in Kurdistan region that they have no license,
Hmm.
they have mic, and they are making impact. And that
Yes.
impact is usually negative because, as I said, lack of training, lack of professionalism, lack of experience, and lack of responsibility.
Yeah.
With zero responsibility, their main responsibility is to grab likes and views.
Exactly, yeah. And in Kurdistan, the issues are not really major. We don't have major conflict or major problems. It's a few things locally or between here and Baghdad, but everyone is covering it from their own perspective. It's so difficult to know what happens the next day or what might happen. You don't know really who to believe.
You know, it's good that in Kurdistan region we still have some good politicians that when media reaches to a level, they ask them to halt, to stop. That's something that I'm still hopeful and I'm still happy with it
You mean
because
during an interview?
not only interview, when a media campaign is leading towards a tension, a major tension, there are always politicians that they tell their medias to easy. Yeah, so that's also something very helpful in Kurdistan.
Exactly. And then another thing is that media does everywhere in the world, even major news organizations in Europe or in the US, including here, they choose to ignore an issue, but then put the spotlight on another issue, with conflict especially.
You know, framing, agenda setting is a part of partisan media, whether you want or not. Partisan media is fed with framing and agenda setting. You have agenda, you set agenda for your media as well, and you also frame some stories the way is good for you.
Yeah.
That's very natural right of every political party to do so. But again, there should be a level of objectivity in the messages that even political parties send so that they grab the attention of audience for future.
Yeah.
I mean, you need some objectivity. You need to give them some good information that they trust you, even when you say that your political party is good. to vote for.
It helps yourself at
It
the end of the
helps
day.
yourself. So one of the problems during the conflict is that framing and is that agenda setting. There is a famous picture with someone with a dagger in his hand trying to grab a man who is running away. But the bigger picture saying totally opposite. So when the picture is larger, when the picture is not framed, you allow audience to have the whole picture. So that's one of the main functions that an objective media, which I said is difficult to have, a responsible media, let's say,
Yeah.
is practicing.
That's true. I mean, I personally grew up listening to the BBC radio, and I still do every morning, especially in the morning, all my life. But sometimes I'm disappointed that some media choose not to cover a certain topic. I know something is happening with the Israel-Iran conflict or in Gaza or in Africa. I know it from other sources that some major news is happening somewhere, and yet I don't hear it, let's say, on my favorite radio station. I wonder why sometimes that they choose to completely ignore a topic and put a lot of focus on another topic.
There is a lot of politics behind this. Your political agenda frames it this way, and that's the way you present it to your audience.
Exactly.
BBC is full of political agenda. I'm sorry to say that you like you listen.
Yeah, now not as before.
Yeah, so it's full of political agenda, and it cannot be freed from that political agenda.
Yeah. And I remember with Al Jazeera also is a very
It's even worse.
controversial thing with the Afghanistan war and the invasion of Iraq. It always had a completely, it was good to have another channel to show you another side of the story. But then again, you watch Al Jazeera, the world is different. You watch CNN, it's completely different. Yeah,
Exactly.
has a total effect on the audience. They, as we said, locally, too many media could confuse the audience, and globally, those major organizations could do the same. Don't you think?
Yeah, let's. You mentioned the war 2003,
Yeah,
or whether you call it invasion, Iraqi liberation, whatever.
that's another thing.
Yeah,
Invasion or liberation.
So some call it invasion, some call it liberation. For me, I was considering it a liberation. For some other people, it was invasion.
Exactly.
It depends how media framed it. But during that time, for example, the Americans, the U.S. Army came up with a, let's say, very excellent idea to embed journalists. Embedded journalists started at that during that war. They came up with the idea of bringing journalists in together with the soldiers to sleep with them, to eat with them, to come with them, to go with them. Even when they had operations, the journalists were following them, so they became friends together. And they saw soldiers dying, the same soldier that they had lunch with or dinner with. So they developed a kind of empathy
For the army.
for the army, and it impacted the way they covered the war.
So, do you think that was their intention?
That was one of their main intention, to impact the independent coverage.
Yes.
And it happened. I'm sure you remember that.
Yeah, I was with the U.S. Army for most of the time during the U.S.
You were a journalist.
Yes.
You were embedded.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
were with. They were taking you to the places. They were
Yeah.
bringing you back.
Everywhere, exactly. Yeah,
Whether you want or not, you develop stories with these people.
exactly.
So your coverage will not be 100% unbiased.
yeah,
Whether
you
you
see
want
it through their eyes.
yeah, you will see it through their lens. You will not see the other side of stories. Even nowadays, with the conflict of Gaza and Israel, if you focus on the story from Israeli point of view, you will go back, you will refer to the conflict from an Israeli point of view, which is fighting terrorist organizations that are always threat against their nation, against their being, against their very existence. But on the other side, you have humans that are dying. In both sides, you have humans that are dying on a daily basis. When journalism is able to humanize that story,
Yeah,
then it is able to de-escalate the conflict as well. Escalation of conflict is always happening when you say, this guy is right, the other is not right. And usually media tends to do that. When you focus on who is right, who is wrong, you end up with escalation.
I totally agree. To humanize any group or any nation would help.
Exactly. Nowadays, let's say, God forbid, there is a conflict between two political parties in Kurdistan. Let's say, I hope that never happens. If you focus too much on picking someone and saying this guy is guilty, then you will not help the conflict to de-escalate. You will not help a peace to happen.
That's
You, on the contrary, you will escalate. You will help to fuel the conflict.
that's true.
But when you say, okay, these guys are both Kurdish, they have many things in common. They live in the same place. They have the same cause. They fought for this cause. They are from the same ethnic background. You focus on similarities rather than differences, which unfortunately is something that is not the main practice nowadays. We tend to focus on differences a lot. But still, I hope that in future we have more practiced, responsible, trained journalists in the field than irresponsible view collectors and like collectors.
Exactly. But one of the things that they complain about, let's say journalists in Kurdistan region where we live, is that they don't have access. If you ask a journalist or a certain media outlet, why do you make up these stories, these numbers? And they say, well, I called the Ministry of Interior, I called the Ministry of Planning. They did not give me any information. I've spoken with journalists myself. And he said, then in that case, I have to make up the story. And I said, how can you make up a story just because you didn't get access to information? Don't cover the story. You can't make up the story. So it is important to have access to information
One
so
of the
that you
problems,
prevent these people from making up stories.
one of the problems is that when journalists goes to report or to collect a story, they have pre-settings. They go there with previously decided stories, and they do everything to get to the place that they have decided to go. So sometimes they make up stories, sometimes they fabricate the facts. I don't believe that we have less access to the decision makers. I think that we have too much access as journalists. I know many journalists that they have direct contacts with leaders of political
That's very true,
parties.
yes.
It depends on the outlet that they represent and also on the level of professionalism that journalists have. I don't want to mention names because most of them are my friends, but many of them have access to first-hand decision makers of politics, and also on the ministry level, on let's say institutional levels. We have too much access, on the contrary, and we have legal framework that allows citizens, not only journalists, to have information about governance in Kurdistan. We have a law for that. I think it's. I don't want to. I don't remember to for which it was 2011. It's the law is 2011, but number of the law I don't remember. I don't recall. But we have such laws that allow transparency to be more valid in Kurdistan region.
So you mean it's not access to information is important, but also how to use that
It is the
information.
way that they frame themselves and they want to frame the story. It's about their pre-settings. It's about their settings before getting out of the outlets.
So you have the
They have,
conclusion,
they
basically.
have the conclusion and they do everything to go towards that conclusion. Even if the story doesn't go there, they want to take you to that direction.
But why
Because
would
that is in their interest. That is in their political interest. That is in the interest of the guy who pays them.
Ah, but why would a politician give them information all the time? You are right. I know journalists that they call a politician, even his secretary, his staff don't have that information, but a journalist has the info.
Then
Why would they feed them this
I would
info?
say the politicians also need practice and they need
Exactly. Yeah.
training.
Yeah.
Some of them.
Because I agree with you. They hand out or they give to the information to a certain journalist before they even share it with the
With their colleagues in the
yeah with their
party.
colleagues. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an issue in Kurdistan. But as you
We need a lot of training.
yeah, but I think many journalists here have been through trainings since 2003, especially. So many Europeans, American organizations came and trained journalists. I have trained many journalists myself, but when they go off, it's they don't practice necessarily.
I've also been a part of training journalists in this country, and I believe that training is not something that happens once. It should be repetitive for the same reason. And not all the people that we trained as journalists are nowadays practicing journalists. Some of them entered business, some of them entered politics.
Yeah,
Only few of them are there. It's a profession. In professional life, especially that media on a daily basis is evolving. The revolutionary evolution of media is something that requires every journalist uh, an ongoing training, practical training. So
yep,
it's not something that yeah, I'm the best journalist of this country. I'm the chief editor. All of us.
yeah.
If we try to do media and journalism, we need ongoing training.
That's very true. Especially, that's a very good point. The revolutionary, fast-paced change of media. If you were trained 25 years ago, it might not necessarily work now with social media and all the platforms and apps and websites that people have access to. Right? It's important to update.
I study media. I have taught media and communication. I have published books. I've published publication, academic publications, and I still research. And sometimes when I go back to researching, I feel like I'm behind, and a lot. So imagine what's happening to the journalists that have been trained 25 years ago,
And
and they still call themselves professional journalists.
yeah, who haven't read anything
Yeah,
since
I've
then.
read, I have written, I have published. I'm being published
Yeah,
continuously. Still, I'm behind because it's going very fast. And
yeah,
there's so many things still that I need to learn.
yeah. But what do you think of the fact that it's the true, also a case in the United States or everywhere where ratings matter, which is now likes and whatever ratings? Is it the media's responsibility to tell a nation this how to think, or is it the audience that decides the content?
You know, I would give some right to people in the US and with Netflix to care about ratings and views because it's about money and it's about business. Media here is not grabbing money with a lot of money with that views and
Such a great point. Yeah,
with that likes. There, it's business. It's Netflix is making 1 million a minute. What?
yeah.
Maybe even in less than a minute. Is do you know any media channel here that is making 1 million a year? No.
That's such a great point. Yeah,
So for them, maybe it matters because it's business. Here, it's a responsibility that people are being impacted.
yeah,
Our kids, the next generation, will have difficult time with the education that a part of it was from this media. I remember from your time and mine, we used to have an idea who was awarded Nobel Peace Prize this year or who was awarded the Literature Nobel
yeah.
this year. Media was telling us that.
That's true.
I challenge any media doing that in this part of the world nowadays.
And it gets lost. Even
It
there's
gets
one
lost.
media who,
I don't know the best writer of this year through our media
yeah,
in literature. I don't know who was the guy who did a great job in physics through our media.
That's
The
very true.
feeding is fully politicized,
Mm.
or if it is entertainment, it's very irresponsible that you you decide not to follow.
Yeah, I love that point that uh, in some countries they rely on ads for their income, uh, whether it's Netflix or any other channel. But here I have the same point that most of the media, they have their source of income set. So since you do not worry about your income, why don't you do some good journalism? You don't rely on ads to survive. You don't rely on clicks to survive. So it gives you a breathing space to do some good journalism. But they still act as if they have to tell people what they want to hear. Am I right?
You're right. And I'm afraid most of the time these are also fake. I mean, I need to see the source of the data that claims that such huge claim. I'm number one. I'm the best. I
So
have
what?
no rival. I have no one like me. I mean, these slogans, they remind me of Soviet time
Exactly.
media
Numbers.
numbers.
But they are number one sometimes for a week, right? For 24 hours. They say it themselves.
That's
Last
why.
week we
That's why I
were,
want to see that data.
they say
As a
from,
researcher, I need that data.
but they say
Who is counting that?
an institute from Dubai or some.
They must have access to their social media or digital media channels.
Hmm.
Do they have access to their digital media channels?
Apparently, there are probably websites that can track the number of visitors. But you are absolutely right.
But still, even those websites, they can provide us with data, right?
Yeah.
This is the data that we got from this institution, and this expert with this background in data collection and data analysis is analyzing this. Here you go. I'm number one.
Yeah.
Even if that's necessary, that's not necessary at all. I have not seen that in any media. It's not a practice with professional media. Imagine I'm trying to grab information. I'm getting my news from this media, and all of a sudden I see a post. I'm number one.
That makes
It's
you
not
leave that
serious.
media.
You know, for me, the seriousness of this media goes under a huge question.
That's so true. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't take it serious.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go back to that media as a source of information.
Just because of that, or because
That's
the fact that
enough.
they.
That's enough, that's enough because they don't trust themselves.
That's very true.
They don't have self-confidence.
Or self-respect.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And all of them are doing that.
they do. Exactly. There is
I hope they get angry and they see this.
yeah. There's an unhealthy competition between them as to who is number one and who's number two. But I
If
guess
they want, we can help them to have healthy competition,
yes.
to have to compete over objective, reliable sources, to compete over getting facts, not shouting, to compete to provide responsible material to the public.
Yeah.
That's a competition that they should have.
Yeah. So do you think like if someone comes from the US to Kurdistan tomorrow, do you think they will be able to have a picture of what's happening here is through the media, or are we
Yeah,
not
of course,
helping?
they will be able to have a wonderful picture.
Hmm.
Different perspectives. You just put them together
Hmm.
like puzzles. You'll understand what's happening, but you need to understand the background of each media.
Ah, you have to know the media first.
Yeah.
The
It's
media
easier. It's
outlets.
easier here. I told you the diversity. You have major media channels,
Yeah.
and you know their owners. You know the background of their owners. Some of them are patriots, nationalists. They love their country, and their media is serving them to that direction. Some of them have some regional agendas that are impacting them. Some of them are getting paid from neighboring
God knows where.
countries. We don't know where. Some of them are, let's say, businessmen. So from their background and bringing together the pieces, you will get an idea what's happening in this
Mm.
region. It's not hard. So tell the guy who is coming from the US, he can have good information here.
Yeah. And there's one thing I've actually noticed is in other countries where you have been and lived, is journalists from different newspapers, let's say different outlets, even competing rival outlets, could go out for a coffee in the evening together. They could be friends. But here, I've noticed that they don't like each other.
Even from the same outlet.
Not from the same, from
Even
different. Oh, you mean
I would be extreme.
wow? Why is that? I mean, they don't like each. I don't want to say hate each other, but
Do you believe me or not? A part of it is related to the decision makers of these medias that they decide to say who is one, who is two. A part of it is
I mean
related to
the
that.
boss.
Decision makers. It's not only sometimes it's not only the boss. People who have power to decide to say I'm number one. No, I'm number one. That competition starts from there. The slogans of some of these medias from the beginning is that I'm number one and no one can compete me. The other one says the same.
Yes.
The other one says the same with different words. If you go to the mottos of this media, the mottos are not motivated by, let's say, news providing or information providing or communication or unbiased facts.
Yeah.
The mottos are motivated by showing a challenge that has not even started.
It's not a challenge.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that leads to the other conflict, which sometimes is interpersonal, unfortunately.
Yeah, because exactly. Interpersonal is a good way of putting it because they know each other often and they switch around. Because I said that because if you watch US media, for example, you watch CNN and they say, oh, yesterday, the New York Times published an article or PBS said this, they mention each other's names. Here, these channels never mention another channel. I don't know why. Like it's a taboo or blasphemy for one channel to say so and so channel reported. They don't want to credit or even acknowledge.
They really need professional training. And I know the professionalism of these journalists nowadays.
Yeah.
And now let me challenge them as they challenge each other. I challenge their professionalism.
Wow. All of them or most.
Most of them I'm never absolute. Most of them.
Exactly. But it's also,
But vast majority of them.
yeah, I agree with you. And it's also hard to retrain someone. I think in my own experience, I always had an easier time to train someone who's uh, clean slate, basically. They are interested in journalism. They turned out to be great journalists. But if someone came to me and said, I've been a journalist for 20 years, it's so hard to
It
retrain.
is the culture. The institutional culture is very important. When the director of this media has told everyone that we are number one and we stay number one and we don't need any training and we are the best, then all of them see themselves above any training.
That's so true. That's so true.
And when the director is humble enough to say, look, we all need training on a daily basis, we need to improve, then the culture of the institution, the culture of the outlet is that training is important. When in the contract of this journalist is written that you have to abide by all the trainings and pass the trainings, not only just participate, pass the trainings in order to have your contract renewed, people will,
Will improve.
in Kurdish we say akıl demin.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, That's such a great point. If you start with the idea that you are perfect, flawless, there's no force on earth that could change you.
Change.
And what's your own favorite medium of media? Like for me, it has been radio from day one. What it has been in your life? Has it changed?
It was radio. I loved radio always. And most of the broken English that I speak, I would say I owe it to radio listening. Listening helped me a lot in early age. I mean, I was very young when I started to speak English. Radio was my favorite, but my most favorite form of media is now
Your phone.
my phone.
And
I have everything in it.
yeah, I still also listen to
This
radio
is
on the
my
phone, actually,
TV,
I
this
must
is
say.
my radio, this is my newspaper, this is my everything.
Yeah.
I have all of those devices. Do you remember our radios, the huge
Yes.
ones, the TVs, one wall,
Antenna. Yeah.
antenna? I have everything here
Yeah.
in my pocket.
Yeah.
It's
Someone.
amazing. Look at the revolution.
That's so true. Yeah.
And the journalists that I trained 20 years ago to learn how to write let's say, headline for a newspaper as first or front page is saying that I don't need training. Look what happened to the front page
Exactly.
and to everything.
Yeah, I was going to mention something that some newspapers, especially in the US, are shut down. One a few years ago that was 150 years old.
Yeah.
Some magazines, print media especially. But
And they were number one.
I agree. I think they were number one. But that shows the change that you are talking about. The newspaper is gone as a print, but probably it's even better quality now on the phone. The same paper. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's dead. But yeah, for me, it's someone asked me recently, do you like listening to the radio or on the phone? And I said on the phone because better quality. I don't have to go to the rooftop to make sure I receive the frequency. Exactly. That was always an issue with batteries back in the day. This was really enjoyable talking to you, Dr. Mohammed. I hope we will have you again on the podcast and we will continue talking about media, the challenges, the changes, whenever you like.
It's a great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.